There's something different about people who lived through the Vietnam War, drafted as children. In a world where military service is voluntary and distant from most families, these individuals experienced the most anxious period of forced military service in American history, and it shaped their psychology in ways that created the most war-conscious and family-protective generation ever to exist. Picture yourself at 10 years old in your 18-year-old brother Tommy just graduated high school, and instead of planning for college or a job, your entire family is gathered around the kitchen table discussing the draft lottery. Numbers will be drawn from a hat, and if Tommy's birthday gets picked early, he'll be forced to fight in Vietnam. This wasn't just family planning. This was your introduction to the concept that government could take your family members away against their will, that wars could reach into American homes and demand sacrifices from ordinary families, and that being male and 18 meant potentially being forced to fight in conflicts you had no voice in creating. Think about what happened to your developing brain during those draft lottery years. Every teenage boy in your neighborhood faced the same uncertainty. Would they be selected? Would they go to college to avoid the draft? Would they flee to Canada? You were learning that adult life for men included the possibility of forced military service, injury, and death in foreign wars. This created what military psychology experts call proximity war. Anxiety. Unlike children in previous generations who experienced war as distant events, you learned that war could reach directly into your own home, take your own brothers, and affect your daily family life through the constant possibility of military conscription. Your family dinner conversations weren't about school activities. They were about deferments, draft cards, conscientious objector status, and whether Tommy should apply to college just to avoid military service. You learned that war wasn't just something that happened to soldiers, it was something that affected entire families who had to make impossible choices. This developed family military planning psychology. You learned that families needed strategies for protecting their members from unwanted government demands, that individual family members' decisions affected everyone's safety, and that loving your family sometimes meant helping them avoid rather than fulfill their legal obligations. But here's what made the Vietnam draft psychologically profound. This was the first war where large numbers of people openly questioned whether the war was necessary or worth fighting. Your older brother wasn't just deciding whether to serve his country, he was deciding whether this particular war deserved his life. You watched television coverage showing protests, draft card burning, and college students chanting "Hell no, we won't go." You heard adults arguing about whether young men should serve their country or resist an unjust war. You were learning that patriotism and military service weren't automatically the same thing. This created selective patriotism psychology. You learned that loving your country could include questioning government decisions about war, that individual conscience played a legitimate role in military service decisions, and that the most patriotic response might sometimes be thoughtful resistance rather than automatic compliance. Now imagine the day Tommy's draft number was called. The letter arrived on a Tuesday morning. "Greetings," it began. "You are hereby directed to report for induction into the armed forces." Your mother started crying. Your father sat in silence. Tommy stared at the paper like it was a death sentence. This moment taught you about government power and individual powerlessness. You learned that families could be torn apart by political decisions made by people who would never face the consequences themselves. That being an American citizen meant accepting the possibility that government could demand ultimate sacrifice from people you loved. This developed governmental power awareness psychology. You learned that government authority could reach into individual homes and demand life-altering sacrifices, that political decisions affected personal family relationships, and that families needed to protect themselves from government demands that might not serve their best interests. The Vietnam draft also taught you about class and privilege. Wealthy families could afford college deferments that kept their sons out of military service. Poor families watched their teenagers get drafted, while rich kids stayed safely on college campuses. You learned that military service during unpopular wars fell disproportionately on families who couldn't afford alternatives. This created military inequality awareness psychology. You learned that wars were often fought by poor people to serve political goals set by rich people, that economic privilege provided protection from government military demands, and that social justice issues included fair distribution of military service burdens. Perhaps most importantly, the Vietnam draft taught you about individual conscience and social pressure. Tommy faced impossible choices. serve in a war he didn't believe in, flee to Canada and abandon his family, or find some way to avoid service while remaining in America. Every choice carried serious moral consequences. This developed moral complexity under pressure psychology. You learned that the most difficult decisions involved conflicts between legitimate values, that individuals facing government pressure needed community support, and that moral courage often required accepting serious personal consequences for principled decisions. The draft also provided lessons about protest and resistance. You watched young people burning draft cards, marching against the war, and organizing resistance to military service. You saw how individual acts of resistance could combine to create social movements that challenged government policy. This created collective resistance psychology. You learned that individuals could influence government policy through coordinated action, that personal sacrifice for social causes could serve community benefit, and that effective resistance to bad policies combined individual conscience with collective organization. The Vietnam draft years also taught you about media and propaganda. Television news showed government officials explaining why the war was necessary, while also showing footage of American soldiers dying in jungle combat that seemed to serve no clear purpose. You learned that government explanations weren't always accurate or complete. This developed government information, skepticism, psychology. You learned that official explanations deserved critical evaluation rather than automatic acceptance, that independent information sources were essential for good citizenship, and that government claims about military necessity should be questioned. Living with draft uncertainty taught you about coping with long-term anxiety over circumstances beyond your control. For years, your family lived with the possibility that Tommy might be drafted, sent to Vietnam, and killed in combat. This wasn't temporary stress, it was ongoing uncertainty about family safety. This created sustained uncertainty management psychology. You learned that life continued even under serious ongoing threats, that families needed strategies for maintaining relationships during periods of extended anxiety, and that hope and planning for the future were important even when current circumstances seemed threatening. Years passed. The draft ended in 1973. The Vietnam War concluded in 1975, but something from those years of family military anxiety stayed forever. An understanding that government decisions about war had direct consequences for individual families, that loving your family might require questioning government demands, and that individual conscience played a legitimate role in decisions about military service and social responsibility. Decades later, when other wars create debates about military service, family sacrifice, and individual conscience, you approach these discussions with wisdom earned from watching families navigate impossible choices between competing loyalties and values. Your Vietnam draft childhood taught you that families needed protection from government demands that might not serve their best interests, that individual moral judgment deserved respect, even when it conflicted with official policy, and that people who made decisions about war should understand the human cost for ordinary families. Those years of draft lottery anxiety, family military planning, and watching teenagers face impossible choices weren't just family stress management. They were education in governmental power limits, individual conscience rights, and the relationship between family loyalty and political obligations that shaped the most family protective and government skeptical generation in American history. Drop a comment and share your Vietnam draft memory. Did you have older brothers facing the draft? How did your family discuss military service and war resistance? What did you learn about government power and individual conscience? And if this resonated with you, hit like and subscribe, because we dive deep into the psychology that explains how living through family military anxiety shaped the remarkable protective instincts and authority skepticism you carry today. See you next time.